All right, hello and welcome everyone to the return of Bitcoin Brief with your host Tone Vays, joined by the one and only co-host Jimmy Song. Jimmy, how are you today, man?
Well, other than some allergies that you could clearly see in my eyes, I am doing very well.
Yeah, no, I had the same problem, man. Like allergies hit me today, and I'm like blinded by the sun right now based on where I am. And market having a crazy day. I'm wearing my BTFD shirt, and we're gonna get to the market eventually at the very end. But we got a lot to cover. And but overall, the market is doing well. Jimmy, you're happy with the price of Bitcoin overall?
Well, it looks like we're hitting a double top, and I know how you feel about double tops, so I'm very excited.
Oh yeah, as you should be. Also, the last time we did the show might have been Christmas, and I think the world has only gone crazier with the whole COVID insanity.
Dude,
Congratulations.
we did the Bitcoin birthday. We did several other
Right. Well, I mean,
election stuff.
The brief.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Yeah, and we haven't done it in a while.
Congratulations on winning your bet that Trump did not become president, which kind of sucks. But hey, we deal with it. It's a bunch of insanity going on, and we will, deal with it as much as we can, or as best.
Yeah, indeed. And there's there are other things going on. One of the nice things is that no matter who's president, they ain't affecting Bitcoin too much. Bitcoin doesn't care who's president.
That is true. All right, hold on a second here. Let me just situate my monitor, and we will be off to screen share. It is a fairly it is a fairly Bitcoin focused show today, which is good. But as much as I would like to stay away from the shitcoin stories, we do have to cover the Ethereum fees that are getting out of control. I see like Ethereum fans complaining about like $90 to $100 Ethereum fees, which is kind of hilarious. So Ethereum transaction fees hit record highs. I remember doing this like back when we were doing the shows this summer, and the transaction fees were like $80, $90, and now they are literally through the roof. I saw someone having like a $90 or $100 transaction fee. And because of that, exchanges are temporarily halting Ethereum withdrawals. And I'm going to quickly look at CoinMarketCap. And as I briefly mentioned yesterday, I should probably have a short video for it. Polkadot has made it into number 4 now. And Polkadot is like another scam to help you connect these blockchains together. And of course, you're paying a Polkadot fee for that. And people are jumping off of Ethereum onto Ethereum competitors because the fees are cheaper, not realizing that the moment you start using their competitors, their fees are going to go through the roof because none of this shit can scale, in addition to none of this shit being decentralized. Give us one quick rundown because we have actually important stories to cover.
Yeah, I found it hilarious that transferring WBTC, which is wrap BTC, on Ethereum costs way more than just doing BTC on chain. So that just about sums up what the hell is happening on Ethereum. Like the craziness with all of this is essentially just kind of irrational exuberance on some of the stuff going on. I mean, it is what it is. Ethereum. Another tweet that I saw earlier today was Grubel saying how Vitalik back in 2014 was saying like there was all sorts of nefarious behavior that was causing Bitcoin fees to spike or something like that, and nobody's saying the same thing about Ethereum at this point. I suspect that there's some behavior by somebody to spike the fees, but who knows? We'll have to see. This is just kind of a giant mess, and it's just hot garbage. That's all it is.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to give a shout out to my new mug. Check that out. I'll probably put
very nice.
Well, that's
Bitcoin is the king indeed.
Once again, courtesy of the Buy the Dip store. Okay, yeah, so that's funny about wrapped Bitcoin. So now those that don't understand how Bitcoin works end up wrapping it up as wrapped Bitcoin on top of Uniswap or Ethereum or God knows what else, because I would never use this nonsense. And not only did you just add a giant layer of getting hacked, a giant layer of losing access to your Bitcoin because someone else got hacked, you've also added an unreasonably high fee to get out of that contract or to move the shit around. So great job, Wrapped Bitcoin promoters. Okay, so let's move on to one more piece of stupid that eventually, man, I remember going back to 2014, making fun of IBM. I remember watching you on stage at the University of Texas conference with an IBM guy on stage with you. You were as nice as you can without calling him a complete idiot. And and here we are, 6 years later. IBM has cut its blockchain team down to almost nothing, according to people familiar with the situation. What happened here, Jimmy?
Well, the same thing that we've been saying for a long time. They didn't produce anything that was productive. These are quote unquote innovation labs that actually produce no innovation. So, you know, when you're not doing something that's profitable for a company, even if it's a zombie company like IBM is, well, you're going to get cut, and they did. And, you know, like we saw this a mile away, and there's a lot of other companies from back in 2014 that did something similar. Remember, like Digital Asset Holdings and R3 and all these other companies that were going to bring blockchain to enterprise. Well, none of them have come to anything, and they don't do anything. You know, this was so utterly predictable that you know, we've been saying it for like 7 years now. So the fact that this is just like one of the dominoes to fall, and they all go out with a whimper, not with a bang. You know, it's only because you know, CoinDesk reporters were able to hear from some of their ex-employees that we even know of this story. But there were a lot of different blockchain innovation labs and big companies. None of them have done anything. I suspect most of them have been cut in the same way as IBM.
Look, I don't really do much consulting, but I had like an unreasonably high fee for my corporate consulting. No one ever took me up on it. And people were like making fun of it. I mean, back in the, no one's ever actually done it. I had like a 0.3 Bitcoin consulting fee, but back when Bitcoin was like, you know, 10 grand. No one ever took the deal. When people are like, is a conversation with you worth 0.3 Bitcoin? People were laughing at that. And my answer was, imagine how much money I could have saved IBM if they had only paid me 0.3 Bitcoin in 2014. And I would have told them not to do this nonsense.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that people don't care about wasting money, especially when, you know, they're rent seekers like IBM is. It's and the reason it lasted so long, if it was a company in a free market, or if they were a small business, there's no way they could have sustained it this long. But because they're a zombie company, essentially, you know, making money off of quote unquote services or whatever, they, you know, this is what happens, is you can drag this out for 7 years.
All right, so let's look at a company that waited a long time to join the Bitcoin world, and they didn't join the blockchain world. They went right into the Bitcoin world, and that's PayPal. And now, of course, you know, a double-edged sword. Is PayPal really doing anything useful? PayPal is allowing you to buy Bitcoin right on PayPal, but not for business accounts, only for personal accounts, which sucks because most of my money on PayPal is a business account, not a personal account. And they're not letting me move my business revenue into Bitcoin. So it kind of stays in dollars for now because it's business revenue. But PayPal Q4 transaction revenue rose 11.8% in first quarterly report since adding crypto. So PayPal learned that you can make money just by adopting Bitcoin. Now you can adopt Bitcoin to make your business better, to lower cost of your transactions, to lower some administrative cost, or you can also adopt Bitcoin by providing Bitcoin utility to users. That utility could be in the form of payments, which they're not doing, ironically, as a payments company, but they are doing it as a form of storage, which they are also kind of in the business of. But they are letting you buy crypto, and just by letting you buy crypto, the company made money. So obviously, if you are a competitor to PayPal, you may also want to implement and give your users the ability to at least buy Bitcoin, but you could also beat PayPal to market by making it easy for consumers for the business side of transactions to not only accept Bitcoin, but also like immediately store it, because PayPal doesn't do that. So your thoughts on just a little recap of PayPal and Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, PayPal is essentially a bank, right? Where you store your money, and they do have now options for Bitcoin and some other shitcoins or whatever. But they were forced to make this move, remember, because Cash App was making tons of money selling Bitcoin to retail. And Tone's right. If there were a bank like thing for businesses that allowed you to store in Bitcoin, they would get a lot of business. I don't know why no one's sort of like started that yet. Probably the regulatory hurdles around all of that are
Level,
uncertain.
right? Like you're an advisor to Level. That's what you guys are doing over there.
Yeah, but like having business accounts and things like that, they're different needs if you're a business, for example. But I would like to see that everyone's aiming at retail. I think business, like I don't know if you listened to any of Michael Saylor's thing yesterday, but all these businesses, they have lots of melting ice cubes in the form of the dollar and stuff. They need banking services too. It is true that you can be your own bank if you custody your own Bitcoin, but a lot of these people are scared, as a lot of these companies are scared. Having some form of being able to do it with some sort of service that can like handhold them and stuff, that could definitely be a viable business. I don't know why no one's really doing it at the moment.
Yeah. Hey, Jimmy. Yeah, I mean, I'm waiting. I would love to move my business banking out of PayPal and into Level.
Okay. Well, let's talk to those guys about it and see if
because like Chase got mad at me because see, I'm using PayPal as my business bank, but I don't have an actual business bank account. So sometimes I was at Chase Bank the other day, and they got that, and they like yelled at me for doing some business transactions through my personal account because like I don't want to open a business bank account to connect to my PayPal business account for like 3 transactions a year because I just use PayPal for everything. I'm just trying to minimize my accounts. But hey, LVL needs to start accepting businesses that also accept Bitcoin payments.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Because right now, and if PayPal does it, that would also help. Anyway, let's move on to another company that needs to compete now that the Cash App is taken over and PayPal is getting in the game. Well, Visa, again, 6 years too late, but better late than ever. Visa is starting to come around. Now, Visa has a slightly different business. Visa is not going to compete with Bitcoin directly. Visa is, of course, going to compete with Lightning. I said on my trading show the other day, real quickly, that Visa Lightning will compete with Visa. Lightning will have 1 million transactions a second eventually. We will get there, probably sooner than later at this point. But Visa is getting in the game. They're going to be more open to probably allowing debit cards like Bitcoin prepaid debit cards. They're also trying to be a little more friendlier to Bitcoin. But unlike PayPal, which is allowing you to buy Bitcoin, it looks like Visa is trying to get into the transaction of Bitcoin game. I'm not exactly sure how or why this is innovative or necessarily useful, because while these Bitcoin debit cards with a Visa logo are great for Bitcoin early adopters, I don't expect these Bitcoin debit cards to be very useful in a decade. But I'm not sure if they're not going to be useful in the developed world or in the developing world, because one of those two is going to fully embrace Bitcoin and everyone's going to have it and everyone's going to be using it. I'm hoping it's the whole world. But if the here's my view on it. If the developed world, and by developed, I mean US, Canada, though Canada is now questionable, Australia, Japan, Europe, if these countries embrace Bitcoin, then Bitcoin will just take over transactions as well with Lightning. But if they continue to demonize and try to prevent Bitcoin's usage, I mean, I've been trying to send money to other places, like even like Africa, and it's a nightmare. So I do believe that in the very near future, the developing world would love to adopt Bitcoin as well. So these debit cards will eventually go away because more people will just take your Bitcoin directly. But any thoughts on where Visa should go if you're not familiar with where they're going? But it's a little confusing on where they're going.
Yeah, it's not entirely clear to me what they're allowing customers to do, because it says to allow customers to buy and sell digital assets. But Visa is a payment network. How are you going to buy and, I mean, I guess they either give you like they're partnering with Anchorage, and Anchorage like lets you basically custody stuff much more easily. So, I mean, are they kind of doing a PayPal play here where they're allowing individual holders
what it might
to
be? You know what it might be, Jimmy? They're saying we're not going to be as big a dicks about allowing you to use our Visa logo to buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean that might be what it is. I like what would make sense to me for Visa to do is to be like an L2, a trusted L2 layer with some of this stuff. There are laws around AML KYC that you have to follow, and you know they already kind of know their merchants and stuff. So it could be sort of like a KYC L2 for Bitcoin. That would make sense for me, but. Yeah, it's not entirely clear that that's where they're going. It sounds like where they're going is more allowing people to buy Bitcoin and store it with Anchorage or something like that.
Man, look, Visa, look, again, it's a giant company, so it's hard for them to, maneuver quickly. If I was an advisor to Visa at my 0.3 Bitcoin per hour rate, I would convince them to be Lightning experts, start running Lightning nodes, start developing merchant processing machines that would accept Visa logos because they know who the customers are, and also allow them, like, help facilitate Lightning transactions and keep fees from the Lightning network.
Well, I mean, I think their wheelhouse would be basically what Strike is doing, which is to take the dollars and then pay in Bitcoin to the merchant, something like that. That would make sense to me, and
they would be able to do that as well. Absolutely. And the other,
but that's not that they don't seem very interested in that. I know the Jack Mallers and Strike are doing fantastic with that, and if you haven't used Strike to pay somebody with dollars and have the other person receive Bitcoin, you got to try it out. Like that makes all the difference in the world as a merchant, because now I can like sell stuff for for Bitcoin and they're paying in dollars. That's huge.
Right. So it's a little confusing, like what Visa's business is, right? So like, for example, we have I just happened to glance at a live comment, and the person says Visa could issue a credit card that can be directly topped up with Bitcoin and spend in any currency as usual. But Visa doesn't actually do that. Visa is like a white label payment rails, where like banks issue a card with a Visa logo to use on Visa's payment rails. So it is the issuing bank that decides your credit line and your access, and they're the ones that keep your personal information. Visa doesn't have that. Like if you have like three, or no matter how many debit cards you have with a Visa logo, you can't call Visa the company and talk to them about your problems. They don't know who you are. They don't have, like, you're not a customer of Visa. You're just using their payment rails. You're a customer of the issuer of the card. Now, I'm not sure how Visa prepaid gift cards work. They could get into the Bitcoin gift card game, I guess, by taking other people's Bitcoin, loading it up, taking a nice fat fee, and then like Jimmy Song can go and pay for a Visa logo gift card from Visa, paying for it in Bitcoin. You can even load it right on the back of it, with Bitcoin. But now it becomes a very anonymous way of spending Bitcoin. So I don't know if they want to get into that game.
Yeah. I mean, they have stuff like that already, right? Like, you can buy gift cards for cash at CVS. And
Right.
the reason why they have that is because a lot of people don't have credit cards and they still want to, get an iTunes like MP3 or something. This is all going to like come to a head in some way because all these industries are getting disrupted. They know they have to do something. I don't know if this is necessarily the right move for Visa, but at least they're trying.
Yep. They're trying to do something. That's great. So here's someone else that's trying to do something, and that is the mayor of Miami. So Mayor Francis Suarez has been excellent. I was in Miami for over a week. A friend of mine was trying to set up a meeting with him. Unfortunately, I didn't get it. But he is leaving Miami open. The governor of Florida is leaving Miami open. He is loving the Bitcoin community. Unfortunately, there is a lot of blockchainers there as well. But he wants to make regulations as loose as possible to invite people with money and ideas to work out of Miami. And it's a great plan. So just a shout out. Not sure there's much else to talk about this other than go check out Miami.
Well, I did send them my newest book, Thank God for Bitcoin. And I know one of my co-authors for the previous book actually handed him the Little Bitcoin book personally. So hopefully he reads those and comes away with the idea that Bitcoin is really the only one. And, he shouldn't bother with shitcoins or blockchain.
Yeah, honestly, that's what my meeting would have been about. I would have just tried to make sure that he doesn't, take them. It's like what happened with Kim.com, and I failed. Like I was at his house for like 3 days with Willy Woo, trying to convince him that Bitcoin is the future. And then Roger Ver was there probably before and after my meeting with Kim, and clearly Roger won. And you can see what's going. I still have the chart, and I'm waiting for this to go under 1% before permanently retiring this chart. Once Bcash is less than 1% of a Bitcoin, it's over. I'm permanently retiring the chart. Okay, back to Bitcoin stories. So Michael Saylor, while he's doing a great job convincing other companies to do it, this was an interesting story. Came out about 2 weeks ago now, or about 10 days ago. Marathon Patent Group has bought 150 million worth of Bitcoin, and they explained why as well. So clearly other companies are buying it, but I wasn't very familiar with this company, but it looks like they are a Bitcoin mining company in the US, which begs the question, if you are mining Bitcoin, why are you buying Bitcoin? It's a little bit confusing to me. Either they're not being very good miners, or they don't believe in their product. Shouldn't they? And right now, mining is profitable as hell at these current prices. I was speaking to some miners. Honestly, I think people are still mining Bitcoin under 10 grand a Bitcoin. So why didn't they invest this money in mining equipment instead of just buying Bitcoin outright? Any thoughts?
Oh, well, so mining equipment is just backlog like crazy. I know the creators of WhatsMiner, MicroBT, they've sold out for the next 2 years already.
Wow.
Bitmain, the creators of Antminer, they are sold out for like the next 6 to 9 months. It is extremely difficult to get this equipment. And this is kind of what happens during the front end of a bull run, is that all of this equipment, like this is the first thing that people think about is mining, and they want to get in front of it. Well, it's kind of too late at this point. The time to have bought a lot of this equipment was about a year and a half ago. And, inevitably towards the end of the cycle, there will be a lot more mining manufacturer equipment, equipment manufacturers that will try to come in, and then, the price will crash, and then they will be bankrupted and, won't be able to make it. But that said, like MicroBT managed to survive this cycle, and they are going to do fantastic and sell a lot as a result. But yeah, I'd like to see more competitors out there, but unfortunately, the timing on these new companies tends to be kind of bad.
So yeah, so this is actually, so they do have a lot of miners. They have 103,000 miners, which is pretty big. I have no idea how the hell you
They have
manage
contracted to purchase. I'm guessing it's probably slightly obsolete equipment like the Antminer S9s or something, but I mean, it is it's still profitable at these prices.
So let's talk about the cycle, right? Because we spent, God, how much time did we spend in 2019 and 2020 dealing with the FUD that Bitcoin mining is going to collapse and the price of Bitcoin is going to fall below the production of mining. And now here we are 1 year later, where there's like 2 years sold out for future mining equipment. And all these companies are about to come up, building all this mining equipment. And in about 2 to 3 years from now, there will be so much mining equipment available that no one's going to want it because the price would have topped. And there will be an oversaturation of mining, and then we're going to drop again, and then Bitcoin would fall down to about $30,000, $30,000 to $50,000 from $200,000, and everyone's going to be screaming how Bitcoin is going to die. Miners, the cost to mine a Bitcoin is greater than the value of a Bitcoin. I mean, this is the cycle. We deal with this every 3 years.
Yeah, it really is the cycle, and it's kind of crazy that all those people that were screaming gloom and doom are now like, let's go get as much mining equipment as we can. I would love to see like TradingView track the price of an Antminer S9 or something like that, because at one point you could get them for $100 each during the bear market. Right now, they're probably selling for like $400 or $500 a piece because it's that profitable at this point to mine Bitcoin. That ancient equipment, essentially, like the Antminer S9, is profitable at this point, which is kind of crazy. But that's how Bitcoin is.
Oh, speaking of Bitmain, I'm looking at so there's finally a resolution. I don't have the article. I didn't know we're going to talk about Bitmain. The Jihan.
That's right. So Jihan is now out at Bitmain, and Micri is going to take over, and Jihan will have nothing more to do with the company apparently.
Yeah. So, and he's taking compensation, and Bitmain is screwed. Man, they lost billions of dollars by going into Bcash. My God.
I mean, not billions, hundreds of billions is my guess. I mean, this is not like, if you know how much they've made, and if they just kept it in Bitcoin, instead they essentially sold Bitcoin at like, $4,000 or $5,000 for a bunch of BCH. BCH right now is what, like $400. It was $400 back then, or I mean, they bought some of those at like $2,500. So I'm guessing their dollar cost average of the BCH that they bought was in the $800-900 range. Even in US dollars, they've lost. So it's not good.
Yeah, it's insane. And here's what's frustrating part, right? Like, as much as we demonized, I don't know how accurate this is. I don't know how seriously NVK takes his own spreadsheet, but
it's all self-reported, but who knows?
As much as we hate on Bitmain, like, I would rather Bitmain have all this Bitcoin instead of, where's the Block One scam? I mean, look at Block One.
And Tezos, yeah.
Block One has 140,000 Bitcoin, all because dumb people gave them this Bitcoin. They just gave it to them to buy a scammy EOS token. So now Block One has 140,000 Bitcoin. No one is doing anything on EOS, and they're rich as hell with is this the dollar value? This is their dollar value. What was that? $5 billion. Okay.
Yep.
So that's how much Block One has. Meanwhile, Bitmain is sitting on a pile of crap. And I would rather have Bitmain have that money manufacturing mining equipment to help Bitcoin.
Yeah. The thing is, though, like it's not necessarily limited by Bitmain. I mean, you have to get time at like TSMC, which is a foundry for chip manufacturing. it's very difficult right now. One of the developments that I've been tracking are new global foundries. It looks like Samsung is opening one here in Texas, and if that happens, then we're going to see some more chip manufacturing. Hopefully, you get more mining manufacturers, maybe even out of Texas, that can manufacture a lot. We have a lot of very cheap energy, so it'll be very interesting to see how that goes forward.
Okay, so let's move on with our Bitcoin talk. We're actually moving fairly nicely through these stories. So Ray Dalio has come out because everyone keeps quoting him in the media for the last 6 to 9 months. So he came out with his own statement, and he kind of understands Bitcoin, but he kind of doesn't. He lays out, I mean, he's just being cautious. He talks about how he still can't separate Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. He does state that he's not an expert and be careful. He does lay out Bitcoin's problems, which are not as bad as he makes them sound. But the one thing that I still find frustrating is that he is comparing Bitcoin to a BlackBerry, which is a complete misunderstanding of Bitcoin, because so many people in the crypto space, try to convince you that, Bitcoin is just a technology and technology always improves, and they confuse standards and innovation concepts with a product on that concept. So Bitcoin is not a cell phone. Bitcoin is not a car. Bitcoin is not, a speaker. Bitcoin is, the phone network. Bitcoin is the electric network. Bitcoin is the internet. And the BlackBerry is basically a mining operator, right? Like Bitmain. That's a BlackBerry. They could do stupid shit and they will have competitors take them out. Any other company like Coinbase, they're a BlackBerry potentially, right? Though they're sticking around. So BlackBerry is actually still around somehow. But the main confusion that he has is confusing Bitcoin, a company, with Bitcoin innovative technology. You want to help him out?
Yeah, this analogy is wrong on so many levels. So first of all, BlackBerries that are limited in supply, well, they'll just manufacture more of them. This is the exact same thing that happens, when a new console comes out, like the Wii or a new type of Xbox or PlayStation or something like that. This happens all the time, where this price spikes at initial launch, but then over the next year or so, they just manufacture more of them. So BlackBerries aren't limited supply in the same way Bitcoin is in limited supply, because you can't manufacture more Bitcoin, in the same way that you can with consumer electronics. The other thing that's that you talked about, which he's hinting at here, is that, oh, this is just MySpace, and there's going to be a Facebook that takes over. Completely wrong analogy. It's not about technology. It's about a network, and he doesn't seem to get that aspect as well. But then he really doesn't get Bitcoin, and I for me, this story is sort of a good indicator of where the mainstream investor is at, and they're coming around to Bitcoin and saying, okay, there are actual use cases, but I'm not really sure about these things. And it tells me that we still have some convincing to do, but people like Michael Saylor are working very hard at educating a lot of these relatively smart people that should be able to get it. But yeah, I mean, we'll see where it goes. There's definitely a group of people on Wall Street, in these institutions and investment community that are going to be investing in Bitcoin pretty soon if Ray Dalio is here. So yeah, that to me is very bullish.
And it's a struggle. It's for some people, and I don't want to be an ageist here, but for people in their 20s and 30s, it seems to be the easiest to understand. It's still hard, like late 20s. like people in their, mid-20s that have come out of a college education, it's hard for them to understand this as well, especially if that education was finance in a liberal arts school. But this concept where he kind of understands that Bitcoin is scarce, but he doesn't understand that shitcoins are not scarce, and he doesn't understand the difference between Bitcoin and shitcoin. And this is a general problem that most people in the crypto space have as well. The only reason why Bitcoin scarcity matters is because all the other shitcoins are non-scarce, insecure inflation on top of Bitcoin. So if scarcity is a feature of Bitcoin that you care about, you should not hold any other shitcoin, because then you are a walking contradiction. And I'm not sure how to explain that to people, even in the crypto space.
Yeah, the thing is, it takes people a while, and it takes people a few years. I mean, there's been a very few exceptions of people that just kind of got it right away. I would say somebody like Russell Kung is one of the very few, but he's also like a really smart person, and he kind of understands it at a deep level right away, because he has to do that with like NFL playbooks or whatever. So it's not normal for people to get it right away. More normal is kind of like Ray Dalio, who sort of gets it a little bit. 5 years from now, he's going to be writing a very different article saying, hey, I get what Bitcoin is, but he's still on that journey, and it takes some time, and it takes a lot of reading, a lot of education, a lot of realizations about what money actually is before you can really understand, Bitcoin and its, value prop. I don't think Ray Dalio necessarily understands what money is yet, despite him having managed a ton of it and having studied a lot of it. I really don't think he does, because if he really understood money, I think he would get Bitcoin a lot better.
And just a little side note, I try to have the same argument when it comes to silver, because as Saifedean pointed out in his book, gold, for the last 100 years, gold had an ability to scale, because no one is going to be exchanging gold as long as we have electricity and modern internet or modern banking. And because of modern technology, silver no longer makes sense as money, because as a micropayment of gold is no longer needed, because modern technology, even if we do go to a gold standard, will now give you a micropayment of gold. So then if the person understands my argument, they now try to come up with another argument as to why they're buying silver. And that argument now becomes, well, silver is a very popular industrial metal and it's very needed, and therefore I'm going to buy a bunch of silver because the price is going to go up because it's needed in industry. And my answer to that is, great. So you're increasing the price of your own cell phones and all the other technology. You're not winning, right? If the people hoard all the silver, one of two things will happen. One, the industry will look for cheaper alternatives, or two, if they can't find a cheaper alternative, they will have to buy expensive silver while raising the price of the end product. You're not helping your position.
Yeah, and a lot of silver, because it's been demonetized, has essentially gone into industry in some way, shape, or form. So there's a lot of like silver spoons and silver cutlery, for example, that if silver gets high enough, it'll just get melted and sold off. So yeah, I mean, silver is, I think, as Saifedean puts it, the original shitcoin. It's on its way out.
Look, there's nothing wrong with trading silver to make more money, but hoarding silver to get rich makes absolutely no sense.
Agreed.
Okay, so we're moving on, and another question that always have to be argued with no coiners mostly, Bitcoin ownership. And here we go. Glassnode broke it down for us. They gave it nice names, from shrimp to humpback whales. And so here's the thing, right? So they make two important points right off the bat, that not all Bitcoin addresses should be treated equal. For instance, no exchange address holding the funds from millions of users and needs to be distinguished from an individual's self-custody address. And of course, one user can control multiple addresses, and one address can hold the funds of multiple users. So when these breakdowns take place and you have someone like a Nouriel Roubini on stage arguing that 0.0000001% of the Bitcoin are holding 90% of all Bitcoin. So for starters, the first thing you need to do is you need to eliminate custodial accounts, accounts of Coinbase and other exchanges and even Fidelity, cold storage accounts that are holding Bitcoin on behalf of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of eventually millions of people. Those cannot be counted as single addresses. My other problem, and unfortunately I did not have the time to read through all of it because nothing here would be new to me. I do not have a problem with Bitcoin's distribution. This is a free market. This is a capitalistic market. So if someone got a lot of Bitcoin early, as long as they got that Bitcoin honestly, and even in the case of the scammy Block 1 EOS, they got it honestly. You idiots gave it to them. So I don't have they earned it honestly. They didn't steal it from you. They didn't hack it from you. They didn't crypto locker it. That one is a little bit of a gray line. And they earned it honestly. You're just stupid by giving them your Bitcoin. But the other problem that I have, and hopefully you've read this whole thing, Jimmy, is that it bothers me how when they do these statistics to demonize the concentration of Bitcoin, they use dust accounts in their percentages. There are billions of accounts with dust in them. So I think that anytime these statistics are made, the only wallets that need to count are wallets that have, say, more than $20 worth of value in them. I don't think any wallet with less than $20 of value needs to count, or some kind of a minimum Satoshi number needs to count. What do you think?
Yeah, there's a lot of flaws with their methodology. For example, I have lots of addresses, and so do you, and so do most users, because most wallets these days are HD, and you have different addresses for each one. Unless you do like a deep chain analysis, you're not going to be able to link them together. This is sort of like very surface level examination of how much addresses have. And like you said, there are exchange addresses which might hold one balance, but it's actually being held on behalf of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people. So in a sense, it's kind of flawed. But yeah, I also agree with this idea that they're trying to demonize like distribution as if it's a virtue in of itself, that if you had a more even distribution, that it's better in some way or morally superior or something like that. I just don't think that's the case. That said, it does seem like, if you read the article, it does seem like institutions and stuff are accumulating, and that there's a greater number of addresses, indicating that there's more people coming into the space, neither of which should really surprise you.
All right, I agree. I just had to grab a link. Someone asked a question. We may get to that question later. I just want to reply with my article. Please read this. And the person's name is Represent. Nice username. There you go. So here's the other thing, right? The other part that I can't stand is people come on stage and demonize Bitcoin's concentration, how much Bitcoin is held by a few people. And outside of the fact that their statistics are usually completely wrong, let's say someone shows up with accurate statistics. The other thing I say is the majority of early large holdings of Bitcoin, not most of them, but a decent chunk, is probably lost forever, including Satoshi's coins. I'm saying probably, not definitely. The other thing is, it is still the most widely distributed asset in the world, because there isn't a single shitcoin that is more distributed than Bitcoin. So I don't understand what the point of their argument is, right? I don't understand their point, because if you look at any other shitcoin, it is way more concentrated by a few people. Not to mention, a lot of those shitcoins, the more of their crypto you hold, the more influence you actually have. When in Bitcoin, no matter how much Bitcoin you have, you can't influence the network.
Yeah, it is kind of funny how, this is the criticism leveled at Bitcoin. It's kind of like, oh, all the miners are in China. Well, actually, your mining concentration is like much, much worse, especially if you're proof of stake, where there's not even mining. It's just a signature of a few people. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's sad how this tends to be one of those shitcoiner criticisms that make no sense.
All right, so I don't know if you want to deal with this question now or maybe later, but I'll read it. This was a super chat. Hey, Tone and Jimmy, do you think at the pace that quantum computing, here we go again, is going, that the Bitcoin network will be hackable and or 51% attacked is also possible? Question mark. Especially given the concentration of miners. Okay, let me answer first and then the expert will. There is no concentration of miners. Stop. Okay. There is no concentration of mining in China. Even if there is, who the hell cares? It's still not a single miner in China. And even if it was a single miner in China, there is still very little they can do. The 51% attack is more of, is as much a game theory, theoretical non-possibility as it is a technological one. It is very difficult to technologically attack Bitcoin at 51% because it's not centralized. In addition, attacking Bitcoin with a 51% attack is the most dumbest thing a person can do in their life. Like, you're literally, it will be dumber than what Bitmain did, and that's saying a lot. As for quantum computing, as far as I understand it, it's not a mining issue. The only danger in quantum computing is the ability to guess other people's private keys, and we're nowhere near there yet. And if we ever get there, I'm sure there will be a soft fork that will give you another level of better encryption. And now the expert can speak.
Yeah, I mean, I've covered the quantum computing thing. Let's just put it this way. If you want to make a bet about whether quantum will be able to break anything in Bitcoin in the next 5 years, I will take that bet all day long. The engineering challenges are near impossible, and it is very, very difficult to create basically a quantum computer with the number of qubits required and so on. So the pace of quantum sort of technology increasing, a lot of people think like technology increases at some sort of like linear level, kind of like chip manufacturing and nanometer processes and stuff like that. It's not like that at all. The engineering challenges are like quantum leaps, to pun completely intended, that need to happen in order for that stuff to matter. And I don't think those quantum leaps are happening. I'm sorry.
But let me ask you.
I know a lot of mainstream media types like to sound smart by mentioning quantum computing, but if you're repeating that, you just don't. You haven't studied it at all.
Right, but let me ask you a question though. Like, obviously, I agree with everything you say, but the question is, what is the concern? What is, like, when someone says quantum computers are a problem for Bitcoin, but how? Like, and no one can answer. Like all these people that are worried about quantum computers, you just heard a buzzword, quantum computers.
Well, so the thing that they're afraid of is that, exactly. Well, so you would have to, you could take a public key and derive the private key by doing that. I mean, that's a lot of calculations, and on a conventional computer, it would take more than the age of the universe and so on. With a quantum computer, it's possible that it can be done, faster, theoretically speaking. But again, this requires lots and lots of, breakthroughs that we just haven't seen yet. And it's not going to happen. It's kind of like cold fusion. That was the thing in the 90s that 80s and 90s that everyone was talking about. Oh, it's right around the corner. If you remember Back to the Future 2, they had Mr. Cold Fusion and everything else. It was in the popular psyche. Have we had cold fusion? Absolutely not, because just because you talk about it or the media hypes it doesn't mean that the technology breakthrough is around the corner. That's not how science works. Nature gives up its secrets on its schedule and not yours. So sorry, that's not going to happen.
Man, I actually do want to, we got to do, I really want to start understanding Bitcoin podcast, and we can spend a whole hour on this, because I do have a couple
dude, we're having trouble getting out these daily shows. Okay, so let's do one thing at a time, bud.
All right. Okay. Really quick, right? So one more thing, just to put this topic to bed. Just because someone can actually invent a quantum computer algorithm and is capable of guessing someone's private key from a public key, don't think that this is now going to be, this guy guessed it, and now every second you're guessing everybody else's. It may take, let's say, 10 years to guess a single private key, and now it's going to take you 10 years to guess another one, or maybe 5 years, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not going to be easy. And like the thing about quantum computers is that they are really slow. To factor 15 into 3 and 5 took like a long time, relatively speaking.
Right.
Conventional computers, what you have on your phone or your desktop or your laptop, those are many orders of magnitude faster. And like, yeah, it's just like, if you're gonna say the word quantum, come to me when you understand how quantum decay works and how error correction works. If you can explain that to me, then I'll answer your question. Until then, like, these are just wastes of my time, and they're really just sort of what journalists want to be true, and you're feeding off of their propaganda and not understanding the science or engineering behind it at all.
Right. And but also, like, I don't even have that concern. My concern is, and everyone is telling me I'm an idiot, but my concern is like a random collision of a private key. Sooner or later, I know it's 1 in trillion, but sooner or later, two random people are going to randomly collide on a private key.
That's not going to happen. So SHA-256 is like an algorithm that's been used for many years, and essentially you can feed it any amount of data, and you will always get 256 bits. To date, we do not know of a single SHA-256 collision of all of the different SHA-256s that have ever happened, and it took Google a significant amount of time to do that with SHA-1. They finally found one collision, which by the way, was used to unlock some Bitcoins that Peter Todd put on there a long time ago.
Really?
I teach this in my class about the really cool problem that Peter Todd put on the blockchain. And he has a similar bounty for I think breaking RIPE-MD 160 and SHA-256. But yeah, I mean, like the number of calculations or the number of hashes that you so SHA-256 is 256 bits. If you generated 2 to the 128th different private keys, then you'll find a collision. That's going to take 2 to the 128th is a really large number. Even if you generated like 1 trillion a second, it would take many billions of years, something like that. So it's not happening. Let's just say it that way. A much more probable thing is that the random number generator is broken, which has happened, and that you get the same private key as a result of that. That's happened before with the various Android devices and so on.
Oh, okay. So that's a screw up on the user
developer side. That's
developer
you know,
side.
basically you have to be very careful about random number generation and making sure that you get enough entropy.
Oh yeah, that's why NVK always recommends rolling dice.
Yeah, or take a picture and SHA-256 that and XOR it with whatever you have. That's a perfectly fine way. Or shuffle a deck of cards and reveal them. I've made manual entropy things, you know, in various products I've contributed to and so on.
All right. So now let's move on. So that was a good little side topic. It does deserve its own video. So let's talk about a bunch of new nodes entering the space, and one of the creators of the original Lightning paper, I can never pronounce his name, Taj Draya, update.
Dryja, Taj Dryja, I think is how you pronounce it.
Can you just like give our audience an update on what's going on and the Utreexo demo release 0.2?
Yeah, Utreexo. So this is a really fascinating research thing that Taj has been doing for quite a while. One of the big complaints of you know, running Bitcoin a full node is the amount of space that you need. You need right now around 300 gigabytes, possibly more than that, in order to run a full node with archival properties and stuff, so on. Here is a really interesting thing that he came up with, which is called Utreexo. Essentially, instead of so a full archival node is like 300 gigabytes. Something called a prune node is still a full node. It keeps a state of all the UTXOs, and that ends up being like less than 10 gigabytes. He's reduced the prune node to something like, I think it's like 64 bytes or something like that. That's what Utreexo is. The idea is that you can you can prove everything using essentially a Merkle tree and proving that every single UTXO was in a part of was a part of something or other. Calvin Kim, he's a developer out of Korea. He knows a lot of this stuff, and he was telling me some of it. But yeah, it's the idea would be to be able to run a full node on your phone with hardly any storage, and be able to prove with each block. The only thing is that the bandwidth requirements are still there, and on top of the normal bandwidth requirements, you have to have proofs for each UTXO that's being spent. But you know, it's entirely doable, and I think it's really cool that you can do something like this, and there will probably be applications coming out. They have a demo now. You can go and download it and try it out.
All right, that's actually really, really cool. That it should become a lot easier to run a full node, especially on your cell phone. So that is awesome, guys. Check that out. And finally, we conclude with a very important topic that Jimmy and I have actually argued a little bit about, a Taproot update. Developers are talking. I want this shit in sooner than later. What's going on, Jimmy?
Well, so they had a meeting. I think it was on last Thursday or possibly Tuesday of this week. I forget, either one. But basically, they've been talking about how to activate Taproot. I think we all know that Taproot is a very useful set of features that we're bringing into Bitcoin, Schnorr signatures and you know, Taproot out, pay to tap script and things like that are all coming. The meeting was really about how to activate it on the network. There are a bunch of proposals, but apparently what the developers came to was, we're going to do BitBait, and BitBait is almost exactly like BIP9, which was used for SegWit, you know, back in 2017. Except that instead, BIP9 basically said, we're not going to activate it on the network if the miners don't signal readiness for a year. With BitBait, it says, well, if they don't activate it within a year, we're going to activate it anyway. That's the only real difference. But the developers were apparently unanimous on BIP8, and that seems to be the direction that we're going to go. with a 1 year timeout. After a year, then it's just going to be okay. Well, then we're going to activate it anyway. So, there's BitBait will require 95% threshold, but that's probably going to get there very quickly. I don't expect this to be that controversial. I really do expect Taproot to come on this year. But yeah, the next point release will be happening. Yeah. So the next point release will probably have the BitBait mechanism baked into it, at which point the miners can start signaling, I think, a couple weeks after that. So we might see it in the next 6 months.
Wow. So if the miners signal for it with 95% consensus.
Signal readiness, yeah.
Signal readiness, right. With 95% consensus, let's say by September 1st. How soon after that will the code be usable?
It's usually two difficulty adjustment periods after. So it's about a month after that. So if they're signaling readiness by September 1st, then it would be 4 weeks or 4,032 blocks after that, at which point it'll be live on the network. Obviously, there's a lot of other things that need to happen before that'll go through. A lot of wallets will have to add support for pay to tap script and a lot of other things, including Schnorr signatures. Honestly, like as a wallet developer, this is about as big, maybe bigger of a change that you have to do than SegWit. So you not only do you have a different sort of address format, there's some Bec32 changes that are happening as well. But you have to have a pay to tap script, which is an entire it's not easy. It's not going to be easy. I wouldn't necessarily expect every wallet to have it right away. It's probably going to take a while. I expect Bitcoin Core wallet to probably have it first, and then some of these other wallets to follow over the course of the next year or 2 years.
And maybe by 2042, blockchain.info. What do you think?
No, I think they'll go bankrupt before then.
That's a good bet. What will happen first? Blockchain.info going out of business, or them adding SegWit? Forget Taproot. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, so here's a good question, and I'm not going to get too deep into it. Who doesn't want Taproot? I will answer it really quickly. Haters of Bitcoin don't want Taproot. If you're a big Monero fan, if you're into, if you think your privacy coin is going to take over Bitcoin, if you want Bitcoin to continue having higher fees, and you want to demonize Bitcoin so you can pump your scam, you don't want Taproot. And if you have some kind of an influence and a company that profits from demonizing Bitcoin, you don't want it. So there you go.
Yeah, I don't know who actually doesn't want it. As far as I know, like no one's come out against it for any real reason. But yeah, I mean, the interesting thing that we learned with SegWit is that despite it being a major upgrade and producing all sorts of really nice things, almost no altcoin copied it. I think Litecoin was pretty much the only exception. I suspect that Taproot will be similar. It'll be a major upgrade that no one else will take. And they won't even, care about it really, because, all these altcoins, first of all, they don't have the developers to do it. And second, it's all speculation anyway. So that to me proves that altcoins are shitcoins.
Another good quick question. How do miners signal that they are technologically ready? I can answer it, but I'll let you do it.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit in the version field. I don't think that bit has been assigned yet, but it will be by probably the next half release. But basically, they flip a bit in the block header, and you can look at it just by looking at the block headers, whether or not they're signaling readiness. It'll probably be, I don't know, the fifth bit at bit number 5 or bit number 6 or something like that, which hasn't been used yet.
In layman's terms, every time a miner mines a block, they indicate whether the block mined was technologically ready for Taproot. And if 95%, of these blocks get mined over an X amount of time, that means 95% of all blocks being mined are ready.
Yeah. So something like that. Yeah, we'll be basically it's over a 2016 block difficulty adjustment period that 95% of them have to do it. So the clock starts when a new difficulty adjustment happens.
All right. Speaking of blocks, the mempool is, I'm not going to say it's crazy congested, but I have a friend who decided to send a 1.5 sats per byte. Well, now it's per V byte transaction about 5 days ago, and it's been stuck there for a while. So what are the chances a 1.5 sat? Can you also explain the difference between V byte and byte? Because that's a new change. Because how different are they?
Well, so it used to be sats per byte before SegWit, but VByte. So with SegWit, you just multiply everything by 4, except the stuff that's in the SegWit field, which gets counted as a normal weight, and everything else is 4 times the weight, and then you divide by 4 at the end. So a virtual byte is 4 of the SegWit weighted bytes, which ends up being very close to a byte anyway, except for the stuff in the SegWit field, which can be quite a bit if it's like multi-sig or whatever. So you don't get a penalty for multi-sig and so on. Now, what's happening here is that there's almost 50 megabytes of 1 sat per byte transactions, and that is kind of creating a lot of congestion for the very cheap ones. But if you go back to the graph, Tone, you can see that there's a band on top of that now, which is the purple band. That's 1 to 2 sat per virtual byte, and that is that's another 10 or 15 megabytes of it, and that's where your friend's stuff is. That hasn't cleared in a while. In fact, you could go to the 1 month.
By the way, I think these are data errors.
Yeah, those are definitely data errors. So go to the 1 month chart, and it'll show you that it actually hasn't cleared down to the 1 sat per byte range in a while. It did eat into the 1 to 2 a little bit ago, and over the weekends that's been what's happening. If your load time preference, you can probably keep the 1 sat per byte there. It probably won't clear for months or whatever. But if you're willing to wait like a week or two, you could probably go in the 1 to 3 byte sat per byte range and still get it cleared. Overnight you can definitely get it cleared with like 5 or 6, right? Like that's not very much money.
But the wallet that it was sent from needs to have replaced by fee functionality or child pays for parent functionality.
Yeah, I mean, child pays for parent is done by the receiver. So whoever is receiving, but replaced by fee you can obviously replace whatever's in the mempool if you wanted to do that. But yeah, it's right now there's just a lot of transactions, but vast majority of them are very, very cheap. So you can see that like most of the 125 megabytes. Like something like 100 megabytes of it is 4 sats per byte or less. The other will clear in the next couple of days because that's only about 25 blocks worth, and overnight you have 25 that'll clear and so on. So it's not too bad.
Let me ask one more noob question on this, because you said, and this is again understanding Bitcoin podcast needs to happen. You said if you're low time preference and you can wait a month. There's a little bit of a problem with that because the receiver actually decides, the receiving wallet has like some kind of a time, from my understanding, at least that's how it works in a BTC Pay server, from my understanding of it, is that the receiving wallet has an X number of days that they will leave something in the mempool, or the sender wallet. And if it doesn't clear in that X amount of time, the transaction bounces back. So one of either the sender or the receiver chooses how long they're willing to wait. And for some people, it's a week. And for some people, it's a year. But when that time period ends, the transaction bounces back to the sender.
Yeah, I mean, there's no real bouncing back. It just sort of gets kicked out of the mempool.
Right.
The thing is, like, depending on how large you're willing to make your mempool, and this is called the mempool because it's literally in your RAM, right? It's in your memory or whatever.
Right.
Depending on how much memory you allocate to it, it gets kicked out. Depends on entirely on your full node that you're running, and it's a configurable option. If your mempool starts kicking out at 50 megabytes, you obviously only have the top 50 megabytes of this graph. If not, then you might have the entire thing. For most miners, they keep almost everything because you never know like when you might have to mine lower value ones because the higher value ones are gone. So they tend to keep most of them as long as it's in the mempool somewhere, and like especially among miners, it will get in eventually. It never really disappears, and there's no really kicking back or reversing or anything like that.
Well, no,
unless you manage to spend it, do replace by fee or something like that. It does tend to sort of get kicked out of the mempool if it's been in there a while, just because of the fluctuations of the size of the mempool and so on. But yeah, it's entirely dependent on what the miners do, right, and what different nodes do as well.
Right, but also it's the receiving node, guys. So this is where it's really important to run your own node. The receiving node chooses how large to make this mempool, and that's how if you're receiving this transaction on your own node, it could get kicked out of your mempool, and then you will never get that transaction because you kicked it out because your mempool set wasn't large enough. And if you're using somebody else's node, you kind of should have an idea of how big their mempool is. But I guess a lot of these wallets, after what happened in 2017 in December, when the fee went to like $20, and a lot of these low fee transactions ended up never getting to their destinations, I think a lot of wallets since then raised the size of their mempool by quite a bit.
Well, or just implemented RBF, right? Like that would be the way to do it. Like I said, it's about being more time preference. If you're sending it to somebody because you're paying for a good or service, you're probably going to want to spend more money on it on fees because you want it to get to them. But if you're just transferring your hot wallet to cold storage or something like that, you don't really care, right? Like as long as it gets in. So that is what you should be thinking about.
All right. That concludes our news portion of the program. I will take a sneak peek at the price of Bitcoin, but we will let Jimmy talk about his books that are starting to expand exponentially.
Yeah. So I am noticing that there's a lot more sales of each book just because, there's a lot more interest in Bitcoin these days. But this one, Programming Bitcoin, is for programmers. It's for you to learn Bitcoin if you already know how to program, especially in Python. So buy it if you're a developer that wants to learn about programming Bitcoin. Second book is the Little Bitcoin book. This is a book for people that don't really know anything about Bitcoin, and you can basically learn about it in a pretty short book, why the current monetary system is broken and so on. The third book is Thank God for Bitcoin, and that is my latest one that I also wrote with 8 people, just like Little Bitcoin book. And it's a moral argument for Bitcoin from a Christian perspective. I did a podcast with Tone on it. You could go look that up on YouTube. So those are my 3 books, and let's get to the price.
All right. Actually, no, we got to correct. So wait, Jimmy, is it because I've seen transactions like that never made it to the end point, right? So is it only the mining node that mined the transaction, or I'm pretty I was under the assumption that the receiving node, the mempool of the receiving node matters.
I mean, it really whether or not it gets into the blockchain only matters. It's only whether the miner has it or includes it, and miners do kick off some transactions and from their mempools too after it grows stale. The receiving node, it only matters if they're taking zero comp transactions, which you really shouldn't do. So if you're taking zero comp transactions, then yeah, I mean, you have a record of it, and then you're just kind of waiting for a block to include it, and maybe you transmit it to the miners, at various points. That's something that your software could do. That might matter, but generally, like it's only when it's confirmed and included in a block that it's actually a real payment.
All right. Yeah, we'll need to do a whole show on that. Oh, real quick. This was sent over to me right as the show started. Cointelegraph is coming up with their top 100 people. I have no idea how 75 new people made it to this list versus last year. Jimmy was on last year's list. I wasn't. I already see Willy Woo at number 61. That is unreasonably low. Not as crazy as Adam Back being 76. Adam Back is always in my top 10 for any influential people in crypto. Half of these people I have never heard of in my life, and probably the other third don't belong. Jimmy was on last year's list. He's not yet on this year's list, but we still have 40 people to go in front.
60 people.
60 people to go in front. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
And Dan Held is way too low as well. And I have no, who's this? Oh God. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any quick thoughts on this, Jimmy?
Yeah, I mean, I hate listicles for that reason. It's just sort of like clickbait, and let's debate this or whatever. Yeah.
These lists are terrible. If you want a top 100 list, go to my Twitter, click on lists. Where the hell is lists? Twitter always changes shit around. Twitter is like really terrible now.
Lists right there. It's right above profile. One above that. One above your no. To the left.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there. Yeah.
Go to lists. I have one list. Bitcoin approved. I should probably update it, but this is my list, and I keep trying to get to 100, and I haven't made it yet. So like some of these people become shitcoiners and they get removed. Other people become Bitcoiners or are Bitcoiners, they get added. Michael Saylor should definitely be added. Maybe one or two people more. A few people need to get removed, but this is your list. If you want to look at members, this is, if you want to know 100 people to follow, this is it. I should probably take a look at my own list. These are the people to follow. 100 people in Bitcoin, follow them.
All right. There you go.
Price of Bitcoin, let's see. This is the monthly chart that only updates once a day. We closed yesterday very nicely at 37,690. We went fairly high overnight. So this is the weekly chart, still looks bullish. The daily chart was looking great early this morning, nighttime in the US. It was looking incredible. We were almost at 39,000. We broke the high of the Elon Musk Bitcoin tweet pump. And then we took a little bit of a nosedive. So looking at the daily chart, by the way, you see this arrow. I was warning you guys that there could be a top coming either, well, today, tomorrow, or Saturday. So on this Friday was going to be another MRI top. The last MRI top did not end very well. We're still lower than the last daily MRI top. Now, because this makes a bit of a double top, not only with what happened 4 days ago, but also with what happened in mid-January, and we are close to a double top versus early January, I would only see this as a short 1 to 4 candle correction. It's possible this correction started. I was hoping it wouldn't start till Friday afternoon, but we don't always get what we wish for. It is also very likely that this big drop from last night of $2,000, $2,500 is the pullback, and we will still make one more swing into the MRI top going into the weekend, followed by potentially a slightly bigger correction. I remain bullish in this market. I am watching this with caution. I remain invested in GBTC. I'm still waiting for the premium of GBTC to rise. As you can see, GBTC crashed early in the morning, but has rallied back. The premium is really, really low. I don't want to sell at such a low premium. I am going to hold through this. I am of the belief that this will only be a short-term correction. I was also of the belief that this was going to be a short-term correction and has now lasted a month, which is longer than I anticipated. But either way, we did get an MRI warning buy here at the bottom, not as ideally as I would have liked. We could see the opposite here. I do believe this triangle is ready to be removed. I will remove it on my next show that is going to be more focused on only trading. I will leave it here for now. I am watching this MRI top with a caution. I'm still bullish in the market, however. Gold, unfortunately, Jimmy, Ethereum looks very bullish, not only versus the dollar, but also versus Bitcoin for the time being. Also because no one can use the damn thing because of its high fees, so people end up hoarding it. There's nothing else to do with it. It's not like they're actually hoarding it for any logical reason. And gold broke my critical support line. As I said, as I've been saying, I am not bullish gold, and I am now bearish gold until further notice. I'm sure silver is being crappy as well, but better than gold at the moment. And I am very bullish the stock market, incredibly bullish the stock market. A lot of that has to do with me being incredibly bearish on the United States and the United States dollar, but being bearish on the United States is not necessarily bearish on the United States stock market, because a lot of American companies are international and they do international business and they can move jurisdiction because many countries will happy to accept those companies. So I'm now very bullish the stock market. We corrected, we went back to the prior all-time high, and we are starting to break out with, a reset in the MRI. However, this just warned me of a monthly MRI top in the stock market. So this is a monthly MRI top. That is not a bearish candle. So as long as this stays a bullish candle, just like with Bitcoin monthly, as long as we have bullish candles, there isn't much of a concern. Here is where there was a concern. We had a big bearish candle, and that kicked off what I believe is a multi-year bear market, though some people only think it lasted 1 year. Jimmy, any questions on price of Bitcoin?
So what's the upside after breaking the double top? What's the upside then?
Good question. So had we gone straight up, this is the weekly chart, had we not pulled back throughout January, my top was going to be in the mid 50s. However, because we have reset and we are now starting a new MRI movement to the upside, this could last for the next, 8 to 10 weeks. Also dependent whether the current weekly candle will close as a continuation of the MRI counts or the counts get reset. But either way, I am now more bullish than before. So at this point, because we took a 1 month detour, I am now extra bullish, and I think we can break 60.
Are you still seeing a double top this year? Or I mean, like two highs this year, or just one?
Well, that's the thing, right? It depends on when this year the first high takes place. If the first high takes place going into the summer, then it's possible there will only be one high this year, but there'll be two highs in the bull cycle. So I see a bull cycle as a 2 to 3 year cycle, and this is the first year of the cycle, and it's possible we could have had the two tops this year. We could also be still going down after the first top this year, making that, higher, significant higher low. I still see two tops. Very unlikely they will both happen this year, even though in 2013 they did. I think one this year, one next year.
Okay. All right. Good to know. And 60 something thousand, huh? Not bad.
Yes, but that only takes effect once we reset the daily MRI. So we do need to complete the daily MRI and then see what happens next. So we need to basically be closer to 42,000 before I'm gonna stand by my breaking 60 statement. So probably in a week or two.
Nice.
All right. That's it, guys. For more information, please check out tonevays.com, other videos, my on-demand videos, learn trading, the affiliate section if you need some stuff. And other than that, that is it for me. We'll try to do a price show tomorrow.
Sounds good. All right. Fiat the